You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies. Hello and welcome to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast on Rocky Mountain Rooftop, the Colorado Rockies affiliate of Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Evan Lang, and with me, as always, is my partner in mime, Skyler Timmons.
I'm in a box.
It's a great bit for our audio listeners. Let me tell you, he did some miming. You could hear it really well, I bet. And we are coming to you on this windy Colorado Saturday. Hopefully, not getting too much distortion on our recordings over the internet because of the high Colorado winds. But hey, at least I still have power for now. XL Energy customers will know what I mean when this goes up on Monday.
It adds a sense of danger to this episode as we record because it could go out at any moment.
Nah, probably not while we record. Maybe. I hope. You want a real sense of danger, go and get a Danger Witch. Be careful. It's spicy.
Too soon.
Is it too soon?
Oh.
Oh, see, here's what I mean. So folks watching on the video, Skyler's video just cut out temporarily with a little circle. Mine's done it a couple times as well. So we're getting nice crisp audio at least. This will be a fun one to record. About as fun as the Rockies' first week of play for the 2024 Major League season.
Yes.
In which we have, it's fun because we titled this segment on Overcoming Adversity. Because let's face it, the Rockies did not start their season well. I would put it as borderline unwatchable, if not totally unwatchable, in most of the games they have played so far up to this point. They did come away with a win in their series against Arizona, but in two of those games, they were completely blown out of the water, especially the opening day game against the Arizona Diamondbacks, in which they lost. What was the final score? 16-1?
Yeah, it was awful. As if the previous 6 weeks of spring training didn't even happen.
Yeah, they're in their first road trip of the season against Arizona and Chicago. 7 games. They came away with a 1-6 record. They were blown out in most of those games, all but 2 of them, basically. And it's been a lot to take in. I don't think ever seen Rockies fans this angry this early.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not without justification, because the games, they have been bad. The pitching's been bad. The hitting had been bad. But, having to go out there and say, hey, maybe don't take out your rage on the poor interns running the social media account or whatever, got a surprising amount of pushback.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the poor folks at Rockies getting a lot of things to deal with during that first week when it's not their fault. But let's go ahead and just dive into this 1-6 start against the Diamondbacks and the Cubs. And the big thing was the starting pitching. Skyler, the starting pitching was bad, to say the least.
Yeah, and I think that was what we expected. The rotation's not going to be good for the Rockies. It hasn't been good for the Rockies for several years now, but even more so this year because Erman's on the shelf. Senzatella, who also has struggled too since that one incredible season. He's struggled since signing his extension and been injured, so he's been on the shelf. Austin Gomber's shown glimpses, but he's kind of not as reliant, hasn't been as consistent. New faces coming in. But the one thing, Evan, that we were expecting is, okay, Kyle Freeland looking good in spring training, all MLB honors out of spring training. Okay, he's going to be our rock. And he's been flat out awful. Leaving pitches up over the zone. He's getting hammered. No, it's bad when you give up a ton of runs in your second outing and your ERA still goes down. Like, you're like, ugh. So it's been ugly. There's been some little glimpses here and there, but overall they've just been ineffective. Something's wrong when Dakota Hudson turns in the best outing out of the first turn through the rotation, first turn and a half through the rotation, where his has been the best against the Chicago Cubs.
And I don't want to diminish Dakota Hudson because he did have a very good start against Chicago. He went 5 1/3 innings, gave up 3 runs, but none of them were earned. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, there's a real opportunity there where if a couple things during that game had gone a little bit differently, Dakota Hudson had turned in the first quality start of the Rockies season. And that would have been, I would have been totally fine with that. So I don't want to diminish Dakota Hudson start, but it is like he's the back end of the rotation guy. He's the the 5th starter, and having him be the one to turn in the best performance so far is surprising because Kyle Freeland has turned in the 2 worst performances so far. And
are we sure it's not a Freaky Friday situation there?
Maybe, because it's been tough. Like you said, Kyle looked great in spring training. Velocity's up, getting his pitches in there, looked really good. But then his first 2 games, he has an ERA of 27. Over 2 starts, he's only clocked 5 2/3 innings. He's been pulled either in the 3rd or the early. He got pulled in the 3rd in his first outing and in the early 4th in the 2nd. And I guess you might as well just start with his first game against Arizona, opening day. 10 hits, 10 earned runs, including a home run. It's bad. And then he follows up in his April 2nd start against the Cubs, 9 hits, 7 earned runs, 3 walks, and 2 home runs, and only 2 strikeouts in each of those games. Now, in the first game, he did limit walks. He only walked 1 batter, but in the second game, he walked 3. And the big thing is, it's early, it's ERA. You look at these things, some of the other metrics, it's a small sample size. But even if you take out some of it, like if you look at his fielding independent pitching, which is like 11.3 or something like that, he's not pitching well. And it's frustrating because, we were talking about this watching him pitch, where it felt like every other pitch was either way out of the zone or it was a batting practice meatball.
And that's kind of been the problem for the whole rotation is ineffectiveness. It's the thing you can look at, like, okay, yeah, Freeland has not walked many guys. Okay, then where is he throwing the ball? And like you said, a lot of these guys are missing middle, over the middle of the plate. Boom, getting smacked hard. And the Rockies aren't going to miss a lot of bats. That's another problem is not a lot of swing and miss. And so that means a lot of pitches are getting fouled off. They're having to labor into counts, deep counts. We've seen Cal Quantrill really struggle with his commanding pitches, and he's been getting squeezed because umpires haven't been great to begin the season. But we've seen him struggle with command, pitch placement. Gomber, same thing, keeps leaving stuff up. Can't really command the zone. Feltner, same thing. The only one who was doing it really was Hudson, and even his command can be a little iffy if he's not on, being a sinker baller. So it's just, I guess the efficiency and quality of their pitches has been the biggest problem. And like we've seen some good movement on stuff, but their pitch placement selection scenarios, they're falling behind guys. Then they're having to try to have a get me over fastball at 90 miles an hour. And that's a pitch that big leaguers aren't missing these days. And we're getting hit hard. And go back to Hudson, he was the one that kind of displayed what the Rockies' classic MO is the sinker baller getting ground outs. And he's being quick, efficient, hitting the zone, making the guys hit the ball on the ground. And it works. But the rest of that rotation has got to utilize their skills and talents to really put together a complete game, so to speak, because pitch efficiency, Evan, that's the name of the game. Because Rockies, I think, are near top of the league in pitches per inning, nearly 20 pitches per inning, which is a lot. Exemplified by Austin Gomber throwing 40 in the first inning at Coors Field.
Yes, that's been a big thing, is that they're throwing a ton of pitches in the first inning. Through the first 7 games, there were only 2 outings where they escaped the first inning throwing less than 30 pitches.
That's not going to work.
And then I'm trying to remember which day it was where their run differential in the first 3 innings of ball games was like -30.
Yeah. Well, and it was not until opening day at Coors Field, their 8th game of the season, they finally scored in the first inning. And they still haven't been. I think they're the only team in Major League Baseball that has yet to score first. They have been playing behind the entire season. And we're only a week in.
Yeah, it's been bad. And they had, I think, up until that point, a 13-game or 14-game streak, a franchise record or tying a franchise record for being either tied or behind after the first inning, of not being the team to score first.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad. It's not good. And there's, that's not, the pitching is not the only thing that's been wrong with this team the first half, but when you have, Cal Quantrill, 2 starts, 9 earned runs. Austin Gomber, 2 starts, 6 earned runs. Kyle Freeland, 2 starts, 17 earned runs. And, the 2 guys that haven't given up a ton of earned runs are Dakota Hudson and Ryan Feltner.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of can help just transition into our next point. Like, that pitching's been bad. Hopefully it can get better. We've seen those inklings. But that Rockies defense has got to get better, Evan. I think that's been the most surprising thing for a lot of us to start the season, because the Rockies are supposed to be good at defense. That's like their one good thing they're supposed to have. And it has not looked crisp to start the year. And the big one for, I think, with Nolan Jones, I think has been the most glaring example of this, of had a good year learning the outfield, set a franchise record outfield assists, but even he hasn't looked good in the outfield here to start the season, and had that unfortunate little league home run mishap in Chicago.
Yeah, that was the big thing, where Nolan Jones could have been a Gold Glover in left field last year, and what made it impressive was that he was learning the outfield still. He'd be converted from third base to, left field and right field. Okay, cool. But then this year, he's just really been struggling, and it all sort of came to a head where in his first 5 games, he had like 4 errors or something like that. And it came to a head in that game where Dakota Hudson was pitching, because we mentioned he gave up, he wasn't able to get his quality start, and none of his runs were earned. And that's because, Nolan Jones had a 2-error play in left field in which he wasn't able to come up with the ball, and then there was a throwing error, and it led to a bases clearing little league home run. And he has struggled. He struggled with, with his routes. He struggled with getting leather to the ball, but he's not the only one. And another name on this list who uncharacteristically struggled defensively early on is Ezequiel Tovar, where Ezequiel Tovar, Gold Glove finalist last year, incredible fielding percentage, one of the best defensive shortstops in the league. He's worth -3 outs above average right now, according to StatCast. And in these first, handful of games, he's had a bunch of, uncharacteristic mishaps. A lot of balls going under his glove, or him not being able to make the throw. He had one where he stopped the ball from going to the outfield, but then he tried to make the throw from his back as he's falling, and that was just very ill-advised. And I think a big part of it is, with how bad the Rockies have started this season, a lot of guys are pressing.
Yeah, when it rains, it pours, because this is a team that lost 103 games, a franchise record. Most losses, first time ever, 100 losses, and the team hasn't changed, so they have that hanging over their heads. And I think a lot of them, especially Tovar, some of these young guys, want to be the great ones to turn the team around, and that's leading to unnecessary pressure and just kind of these rusty in-game situation mental farts, these mental errors, where, Tovar's getting to balls, but they're bouncing off the glove. We're not getting clean transitions. We're kind of batting it away. It's straight up going under our glove. So there's a lot of this, I think, weighing down on guys. And I think that's going to be the big storyline of this mental fortitude of this team throughout this season. It ain't going to be a good season, Evan. I think we can already make that conclusion. but we're seeing these guys of how maybe it can start to compound. And I liked seeing about Nolan Jones now having those errors. And what does veteran leader Charlie Blackmon do the very next day after he makes some costly errors? They're on that road trip that cost the Rockies a couple of games. Chuck comes in with highlights of Charlie Blackmon errors to show him, like, hey, it happens to everybody.
Yeah. And I think that's been a big thing is Chuck has really stepped up as a leader this season so far, and we've seen that. And, I've seen a couple people, still grousing about how we're paying him $13 million this season with, an additional $2 million in incentives, so up to $15 million. And it was like, was it really worth it? And honestly, so far, yes.
We'll call it hazard pay.
Because that's honestly a good way to put it, because Chuck is performing just fine. He's doing fine this year. But one, what would you have spent that money on otherwise? Because the Rockies don't go after free agents.
Yeah, probably nothing.
And two, the leadership and the mental fortitude for a team that is going to struggle this year, I think is going to be invaluable.
Mm-hmm. And part of that, too, is we're seeing that maybe Kris Bryant can kind of be that redirector of the hatred of ire of Rockies fans, because I don't think fans are going to be booing like the Nolan Joneses and Bretton Doyles, these guys, because I think there's just something that they understand. These younger guys, they're learning. No, and we love that. We've seen what they can do. Kris Bryant, of course, doesn't have that luxury, and we saw it at the Coors Field home opener. Dude was getting booed on the first game at Coors Field, the beginning of the season. Kris Bryant's already getting booed because he's had an awful start to the season.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever seen on day one, home opener, first game at Coors Field, someone getting booed that hard at his first at bat ever as a Rockies fan. And I've seen a lot of home openers. It just doesn't happen.
Well, and just fans booing in general type of thing.
Yeah, the Boo Birds don't usually come out at Coors Field, and when they do, they're usually not focused at one specific player. It's usually generally like, oh, the performance. These boos were hardcore, pinpoint directed at Kris Bryant, who, he went through the hot water with his statements over the offseason and has had just, a really bad start to the season. Kris Bryant came into the home opener yesterday with just 2 hits, and prior to that he went, what was it, 0 for 16 with 8 strikeouts.
Yeah, he was 0 for 8
Cub series.
0 for 18 with 10 strikeouts before getting 2 hits in the final game of the Cub series, and it was like an 0 for 24 streak dating back to last year. So pretty awful start to his season.
Yeah, he drew a couple walks. He drew like 1 or 2 walks, but the big thing was like that final game against the Diamondbacks. He wore the golden sombrero of 4 strikeouts. He's had multiple strikeouts, and even then it was wild because in the home opener, and we'll talk a little bit more about the home opener, but his first at bat, he strikes out and gets booed so hard, and then late in the game, he hit a big deal home run. And all the boos were gone. And we're like, well, there's your boos, there's your slump buster. And then in his last at bat of the game, bases loaded, no outs, he took one of, I will say, the worst at bats I've seen in a while. It was not a good at bat. He struck out on 3 pitches, none of which were in the zone, and got booed very hardly yet again. And I think it's going to be a long season for Kris. I feel for him.
But I've seen this discourse too. It's kind of a sign of Rockies fans, a good sign of Rockies fans, like being sick of this baloney with this team of bad performance, and specifically with this habit of overpaying for over-the-hill veterans. And I want Kris to do well. And I still think he can, but Rockies fans are kind of fed up with this kind of stuff. We're sick of hearing, oh, he's a former MVP, he's a former Rookie of the Year. Like, that's in the past. We want good Kris Bryant now.
Yeah, that was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, like we're paying him 182 million. He needs to perform, and he's not doing that. And it comes with the territory. And I think we talked about this. Just because he's out of Chicago, this isn't his early retirement home. We're not going to stand for that. We're paying him to be an MVP. He's got to perform like an MVP, and when he doesn't, he's going to hear the boos. And so it's like, be nice. Like, I'm glad that they did cheer him too. Like, I think that helps. But like, hopefully, Kris can take it in stride. And I saw Susie Hunter offer this idea. Like, why don't we give him like standing ovation like Trey Turner last year too? Mix it up, but like figure out how we can help these guys through their adversity. Because yes, booing is fun and like it's stress relieving, and whatnot. And it can maybe do something, but also it can also not do anything at all.
Exactly. And we'll talk about it a little bit more after our first break, but it really is, it's gonna be a long season, and the best we can do is try not to be miserable about it through the whole thing.
Don't make it more miserable than it needs to be for anybody.
Exactly. And there are some positives to talk about, and that's what we're going to roll into after the break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I was saying Boo earns.
Welcome back to Affected by Altitude. I'm Evan. This is Skyler. And as we said earlier, it's been a rough season to start, but there have been positives, and we might as well roll right into, because we discussed him a little bit in the first segment of the show, is one Mr. Chuck Nazty, who so far has been worth his paycheck. Is much maligned by parts of the fandom at the end of last season and over the off season. The Rockies are paying Charlie Blackmon up to $15 million this season, with a base contract of $13 million for what is likely to be his final season as a Colorado Rocky. But so far, he's been worth the money. He's one of the best performing players on the Rockies right now, and it's not particularly close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's bringing that classic Chuck. I think he brings that example of what we should be striving for on offense. It wasn't until the 8th game of the season that he finally struck out. It was like him and Adley Rutschman were the only ones to still be going with like 24 at-bats plus, have gone that far and hadn't struck out yet. And then Chuck finally did.
Adley Rutschman also struck out.
Oh, man, he's on my fantasy team.
But it goes to show, because that's something I talk up a lot, and that's something that is worth talking about, is Charlie Blackmon's impeccable plate discipline. He does not strike out often, and he started off really strong with that. He said he didn't strike out until the home opener. He went that long without striking out, and he's currently hitting, and I know that it's so early, so batting averages and everything are all over the place, but he's hitting 357, 379, 536, which are all some of the top marks on the team. He hasn't hit a home run yet, but he has 3 doubles and a triple. He's already stolen a base this year. Like, he's taking good at bats. He's making good contact. And what's really crazy about one Mr. Chuck Nazty is he's playing right field regularly and doing it pretty well.
Yeah, you can definitely see he doesn't have the legs he used to, as there's been some like little lazy fly balls into right field that, maybe with somebody a little more speed could track it down, but he kind of hustles in and picks it up on the one bounce.
Well, I'd like to see you make that sprint when you're almost 40.
Yeah, I probably.
Granted, I don't think I could make that sprint now. So
if I get a good enough jump, but no, he's being that leader across the board, that veteran. Like we said, coming in, he's helping Nolan Jones. Be like, hey, everybody makes mistakes, everybody does errors, but him doing it at the top of the lineup, he's not the home run threat at the top of the order as he used to be several years ago. But right now, he's setting that tone for the offense, which I'm glad that the Rockies finally realized, even last year, like, no, Chuck's our best option at the top of the order. And he's been able to put together those quality at bats, make good contact. I love that classic, Chuck ripping the double down the line, like, oh, that's a thing of beauty.
Yeah. And he's always showing the hustle. Like, yeah, he's 38 years old, but he's not giving up on plays. He's always got the wheels churning, watching him leg out a triple, leg out a double, try and utilize the speed that he still has to positive effect is really nice to watch. He still puts in the effort every day. It's clear so much how much he still cares about the game and winning games and being a good example to his teammates. And it really is wild to me. He's started 5 games in right field so far. And we were going into the season going, Chuck's the DH. Chuck shouldn't be playing right field. But honestly, right now, he's playing right field well enough that I'm okay with it. And I laugh because it's funny because the right field battle we were talking about it's going to be between, Kris Bryant on occasion and Michael Toglia and Sean Bouchard. And the guy who won the right field battle was Charlie Blackmon. Like, here's going to be a deep dive. In Dragon Ball Z Abridged Kai, where they're like, hey, who needs some character development? And everyone goes, Gohan, Gohan, Gohan. And Piccolo goes, me! And then flies away. That's Charlie Blackmon this
year. Editing? Make some video content there, Evan? How good are your Photoshop skills?
Yeah. Maybe?
But Chuck is that, and he's going to set that tone for that offense with some of these other guys, because we look back at that final game in Chicago where, they were down big early on, and for some reason the Rockies like to start playing good baseball after the 6th inning now lately. But they start that rally to rally back and tie the game against the Cubs 8-8 in the 7th or 8th inning. In the 8th inning they tied it up 8-8 in the 8th. Ooh. But he comes up with some crucial men on and rips a double. And helps drive in a couple runs, get him back within a couple. And so him at the top of the lineup doing well, I think really helps set the tone for the rest of the lineup, because then Nolan Jones can start performing a little better. It can even help Kris Bryant. Ryan McMahon's continued his thing. Brendan Rodgers, Tovar, a lot of those guys. And then you think of who's hitting in front of Charlie Blackmon. It's been guys like Brenton Doyle, a couple of these younger guys at the bottom of that lineup who have done well, a lot better than you'd think, are setting the table for Chuck, who then can make an impact out of there. So he's got his hands all over this operation, and it's going to be crucial throughout the year. Is where Chuck goes, the Rockies go, so to speak.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, I love seeing him back at the top of the lineup as our leadoff guy. One of the best leadoff hitters in Rockies history, and such a key part of the team is the leadoff hitter. And I do think it's important, especially on Chuck's off days, they've had other guys that lead off, and they've tried out some other things, because it is going to be important to figure out who's going to be your leadoff hitter after Charlie Blackmon. But for now, if Charlie Blackmon is playing, Charlie Blackmon is your leadoff hitter. And he's doing well at it. Like, you look at the team now, he's one of 3 players with 5 or more RBI. He is one of just 2 players with double-digit hits. He is one of only 2 players with a triple, and he leads the team, or is one of the leaders in the team, in all the other offensive categories, behind who we'll be talking about in just a second, one Mr. Ryan McMahon. So it's so important, and it's nice to see, if this is Chuck's farewell tour, he's not taking it off. He's not, taking it easy. He is playing his heart out, no matter how much the Rockies are down. And we have seen, the Rockies try and limit some of his playing time. If it's late in the game, they'll take him off his feet. We've seen Jake Cave now come in a couple times in the 8th or 9th to go out into right field, or take an at bat or something like that. And that's totally fine, because throughout the majority of the game, Chuck is there, and Chuck is being a key contributor.
Yeah. So he's playing for that next contract, if it comes or not. And I think it's good to see Chuck doing that, and just good to see him. Let's hope he stays healthy. We don't need another fastball to the hand, but he's coming out ready to play, and I think that's what you want from your veteran leader. Like we joke about, well, the Rockies love their veteran leaders. Chuck is that example of what a veteran leader who's playing regularly can do. You still need a Charlie Blackmon in your lineup. People will complain, oh, why do we have him in the lineup? We should have one of the younger guys. Like, yeah, the younger guy probably could be a little better, but there's still a place for these veterans like
Yes.
Charlie Blackmon.
Especially
you
when
keep those
Chuck
guys
is
around.
the gold standard of
Yeah.
that veteran right now. This is him taking this role and being the best at it.
Mm-hmm. Like he checks a lot of intangible boxes that you need on a team, and just the positive benefit, he's doing some stuff on the other side, the actual tangible things.
Beard, check. Triples,
Yeah.
check. Veteran leadership, check.
Now, does he want to be here?
Check.
Yeah. Sign him, Dole. And you see the guys, there was watching the pregame for the home opener. They had video of guys talking about Chuck and what he means. And, there's like Ryan McMahon and Nolan Jones talking about like, yeah, I give him a lifetime contract. He can tell us when he's done. You can tell they've got that Rockies mindset. They'll make great GMs someday for the Rockies. But that's just how much he means to him. And, it's good to see him off to a good start.
Yeah, and who knows when there's going to be another Rocky as meaningful as Charlie Blackmon. I think there's some seeds that have been planted in terms of some of our other young players. But right now, Chuck is irreplaceable for this team.
He feels like just a Rocky from like better days of like days of Rockies past. Like he represents this old vintage Rockies feel, so to speak. I don't know if that makes sense. Kind of like when Todd Helton was playing in his last few years. Semblance of, man, what he would do in the past. And it's cool that we still have him here now, and it's going to be weird when he leaves.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying entirely. But on the bright side, there is a guy who this year is making his case for eventually succeeding Charlie as the true veteran leader of the team. And it's one Mr. Ryan McMahon, who is off to an excellent start, truly excellent start. Like, if he continues to play like this, he's an all-star, hands down. And we looked at Ryan McMahon. We talked about him during spring training, of the adjustments he's made mechanically during his swing, about his plate approach and things like that, because he had a rough 2023. He doesn't deny it. No one else is going to deny it. It was not good for him. In another year where we were like, Ryan McMahon needs to break out. Ryan McMahon, needs to really establish himself. This is the year. And so far, McMahon has been the best hitter on the team, one of the better hitters in the league, surprisingly. He's getting it done. His swing looks great. He's compacted his swing a little bit, especially on 2-strike counts. Last year we talked about so much. It looks like when he was struggling, we talked about it looks like there's a gigantic hole in his swing.
Mm-hmm.
Something ain't right. We're not seeing that this year. His swing looks great, and he's putting it to good use, where he leads the team with 12 hits. He's got 2 doubles. He had his first home run in the home opener, 6 runs batted in. He's drawn 4 walks to just 6 strikeouts. He's got an OPS of 1.057. Combine that with his excellent defense at third base, and Ryan McMahon is probably the best player on the Colorado Rockies right now.
Yeah, this could be that year where he finally puts it all together. Because we've seen glimpses. We've seen the nice home run stretches. And, this is like our 3rd week in a row talking about Ryan McMahon, so we'll keep it brief and hit on the most recent highlight. But he's putting together these just nice, good swings, comfortable at the plate. And it's nice having this feeling of when a guy's hot, okay, something special is going to happen. He's going to do something important here. And, might as well get into it. That's exactly what happened in the home opener. Which was crazy, Evan. It was cool to have him at Coors Field, sellout crowd, nice seeing everything. And I was watching on TV.
Weather was beautiful. I wish I could have been there.
Yeah, like beautiful sellout crowd, which was nice to see. Like, Rockies turn out for like those special events which is good. Now, is it going to be sellout today? Maybe, but not as good. But that was a crazy game where, Gomber pitched 40 pitches in the first inning, but then kind of settled in, allowed 2 runs over 4 innings. He threw 40 innings.
40 innings with the first pitch.
Yeah.
Like in Last Crusade after he drinks from the fig grail.
He just immediately turns into a skeleton. But crazy game, but then we see the Rockies kind of rally and come from behind. Had a huge home run from, Ezekiel Tovar hit a home run. Kris Bryant hit his first home run and hit the mitt for $5,000 to donate. Heck yeah. But
I can't remember the last time somebody hit the mitt.
Yeah. Maybe they should, because the Rockies never pull the ball. Then you place that thing in like left center field or the right field seats. But crazy game, back and forth, but then the Rockies bullpen, everything kind of locked it down until the top of the ninth, which Evan, your boy, had a rough outing.
He did. And before I talk about Justin Lawrence, I do want to talk about, Austin Gomber deserves a shout out for his start. He did struggle in the first inning, 41 pitches, I think it was, in that first inning, but ended up, nabbing a pretty good amount of strikeouts. What was it, 8 total strikeouts?
About 7, yeah.
And ended up having a pretty good game after that. Was able to go 4 innings, which was important to save the bullpen. And we get to the point where it is 6-2. And Justin, 6-2, top of the ninth inning. Justin Lawrence is in to wrap things up. And what I want to say is Lawrence hadn't pitched since the second game of the season. So March 29th. That's not ideal, an ideal amount of time to go from between using a reliever. And that's going to lead to some rust. And unfortunately, Lawrence just wasn't able to get it done. Gave up a bunch of, consecutive base hits and was struggling to get the outs. And that's a bummer. But all he can really do is dust himself off and try again the next time. That's all anyone can do after a bad outing. And there are a lot of people dumping on him and ragging on him. And while it was a bad outing, I think we've seen more than enough from Justin Lawrence to know that he is a good pitcher and that good pitchers have bad outings. So I'm not too worried about that. But unfortunately, yeah, Justin Lawrence gives up the lead in the ninth inning. So now all of a sudden it's 7-6 and the Rockies have just 1 inning to figure it out. And
it was one of those like, are the Rockies seriously, we're going to find a way to lose this game?
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
It was very much, it felt like we were snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Mm-hmm. Whereas, we had that last game against the Cubs that ended up being a really fun one. But for most of that game, we already felt like the game was over.
Yeah. Are we going to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat? No.
So
and then we brought out the bad humidor balls.
Man, the amount of salt. So bottom of the ninth inning, Jake Cave, who had come in to replace Charlie Blackmon earlier, because, get Chuck off his feet. It's the ninth inning. We've got a pretty healthy lead. He draws a walk. And then a wild pitch moves into second. And then Brendan Rodgers walks. And then Nolan Jones walks.
Oh,
and all of
wonderful.
a sudden, the bases are loaded with no outs. And Kris Bryant comes up to bat. And very, very ugly strikeout. It was a bad strikeout.
1, 2, 3, all off speed, none in the zone.
And I had done my usual thing of like, all right, guys, the walk-off rule's in effect. Grand slam rule's in effect. Kris Bryant hits the grand slam here. I'm going to buy his jersey, no questions asked. And he then proceeded to take one of the ugliest at-bats I've seen in quite some time. But then Ryan McMahon, on the first pitch of his at-bat, sends a no-doubter over the wall for a walk-off grand slam on opening day.
The roller coaster of emotions this stupid team took us on the home opener. I'm glad it worked out in the end. And Justin Lawrence posted on Instagram and his stories is like, just as I drew it up.
All according to plan. And that's the thing about Justin Lawrence is that he took it in stride. He took it as, yeah, I had a bad outing, and that's it. But he's able to find humor in it. Versus Rays reliever Peter Fairbanks, in his post game interview, was complaining about the baseballs, saying that the balls from the Rockies humidor were just horrible in all caps, and make sure you put them in all caps.
Now, Evan, he's not going to make any excuses. He didn't pitch well.
Yeah, I'm
but
not going to.
He's going to blame the balls.
But the balls were terrible, and it's like, and they
excuses.
asked him, so what was wrong with the balls? And he couldn't really give an answer.
I'm not going to go into detail.
He ended up saying something like they weren't all uniform from ball to ball, which
what baseball is.
What? But then
the balls in the bullpen that we rubbed up were great.
Yeah, and then the interviewer's like, well, did the other pitchers have issues with the balls? And he gets like, well, you can ask him. You're going to ask him, so just ask him. None of the other Rays pitchers had problem with the balls from the humidor. And it's worth noting that before Fairbanks came in, the Rockies had walked just once the entire game.
Yeah. Funny stuff, but what a great way to
the salt. It's so funny to me. But it was an incredibly memorable home opener. Definitely a roller coaster of emotions, but I think very cathartic to walk away with the win, especially in that fashion from that player. I think a lot of us needed that. I definitely needed it. I was not having a great day, and I had been very frustrated by the Rockies, and that just put a big old smile on my face.
Well, and you think of what moments like that can do for a team that has struggled offensively. We saw it. They put up nice rallies in Chicago in that final game, and that carried over onto Friday where they battled. Pitching held up, kept them in the game to the point where then the offense could kind of pick up, get across, couple runs, take the lead, and then to battle back there in the bottom of the ninth and actually show some plate discipline. Maybe they knew because they had the wacky balls in play. I just like the conspiracy that the Rockies, for some reason, who could always be cheating, just randomly decide in this random game.
We always get accused of like cheating or not using things correctly or stuff like that, and it's like, so we're cheating, but we're so bad at it that we still lost 103 games last season.
Yeah, remember how much our cheating in the 2018 season helped us against the Brewers at one time?
Don't get me started on that, because I will go on that. I got so mad with that accusation because none of the details of it even made sense. Yeah. Like, he had the game wrong. He had who the home team was wrong. He had what the benches in Coors Field were made out of wrong.
Yeah. But,
don't get me started.
But you can think of what this can do, momentum for a team. For Ryan McMahon, what that can continue to do for him. These awesome moments where the team can start feeling good, like, hey, this is a good confidence booster. Like, we can rally. We can put things together. Mm-hmm.
And there are guys on this team who we've started to see over the last game or two them kind of start to turn things around.
Loosen up a bit.
And Nolan Jones. Nolan Jones especially needing it after his very difficult start to the season, both defensively and offensively. We've seen Alaris Montero take some very good at-bats, make some good contact, where you just feel like at any moment he's gonna start crushing that ball. Montero's only struck out 3 times in 18 at-bats so far, and I feel like the hits are gonna come for him. Yeah. And
same for Michael Tolia, who has had not playing as regularly, but when he has played, great at bats. He's got a dinger, so he's putting up some good at bats every time he plays.
So I want to wind us down for our next segment here.
Yeah.
But at the beginning of the season, after the first couple of games, we were all saying, we expected things to be bad because rebuilding team, but not this bad. And like, I don't want to deny any of that. The Rockies were terrible over their first 7 games. Just flat out bad. That was a bad team to watch. It was a rough time. But the Rockies are better than that. And I think we're going to start seeing them play better than that now. And I think this game, this home opener, huge tonal shift.
Yeah. And we're recording this on Saturday, so we don't know how the rest of this homestand will go. You won't hear those thoughts until next week. But it's huge. This kind of stuff. It can build momentum, confidence boosters. Because this team, like we said, a lot of pressure on themselves because they don't want to repeat 100 losses again. They don't want to be the reason the Rockies suck eggs. But instead, they can put a little pressure on themselves, like, oh, I got to perform so we can turn this thing around. Like, no, we just need you to be yourself and keep playing the way you know how to play.
It's like the article from a couple days ago. Nolan Jones needs to relax. Nolan Jones needs to ease up a little bit. It's clear that they're putting pressure on themselves, and I think that game released a lot of pressure. So we'll wait and see, and hopefully the Rockies can continue to build on what they put together for their home opener. We're going to take one last quick break here. When we get back, we'll clean up some odds and ends, talk about a couple things, and roll on out. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude with Evan and Skyler. We were just talking about how Peter Optimus Prime Cullen would be an incredible baseball PA announcer.
Peter Optimus Prime Lambert?
Sure. I'm down.
There we go.
Next time I talk to Peter, can you do the voice?
Dude, if one of our pitchers could just transform his arm into a cannon and then just shoot the ball into the zone, that'd be sweet.
Baseball is the right of all sentient beings.
Do you think there's a transformer that could turn into a pitching machine?
Yes.
Well, I guess there's one that turns into a giant boom box and also a giant microscope, so there's got to be a pitching machine. Yeah, giant cassette tapes.
Let's not forget, Megatron's original form was gun.
Just a revolver.
Just a gun. But here in our last half, there's a couple little odds and ends we want to talk about. And I think we might as well start when we're talking about positives let's talk about the Rockies bullpen. Early in the season last year, the Rockies bullpen was also pretty good. And it's been important early on this year because of how the starting pitching's been struggling. But we've seen some good stuff out of the Rockies bullpen to start this year. Primarily, Victor Vodnik, who 5 2/3 innings and 3 appearances, has not given up a single earned run, 6 strikeouts to just 2 walks. And after he struggled during spring training, he had a rough spring. He's looked pretty good to start, and that is a big move in the right direction for him. Very exciting.
Yeah, and I'm going to kind of block in Nick Mears with him, where these guys with big arms, who have these big fastballs and some good stuff. But I think Vodnik comes over in that trade, so we haven't seen as much of him in the minors and stuff, so he still feels a little fresh and an unfamiliar product to me. But Nick Mears is that guy struggled with his command, effectively wild. And if he could just harness his command of his pitches, boom, dude's got it because he can punch dudes out. He's got that velocity, that stuff to be an effective lockdown reliever. And that's what we'd hear about Victor Vodnik. If he can just harness his stuff, hone it in, dude's going to be a dominant back-end rotation or back-end bullpen type of guy. Start of the season, both guys have put it together where, boom, you could put them back-to-back. A 7th, 8th inning with Vodnik, Mears. Those guys back-to-back, you're like, I'm feeling pretty good here.
Yeah, they had Nick Mears in as the setup guy during the home opener. Mm-hmm. And he looked good. Tell you what, Skyler. So we talked about, these guys with big arms and just needing to harness and get their command under control, and they've got good stuff. Well, for Nick Mears, how does 7 strikeouts in 4 2/3 innings sound with just 1 walk?
Pretty good.
That'll play. And it's funny because Nick Mears, who, was designated for assignment twice before coming to the Rockies last year, was not bad last season. Not at all. He had a fairly solid ERA, but, there was still the telltale signs of the command struggle there. And right now he leads the team in strikeouts in terms of relievers. And also, in terms of most of the starters, the only pitcher on the entire Rockies roster has more strikeouts than Nick Mears is Austin Gomber after his strikeout performance in the home opener. And that's what we want to see. And we've seen really strong performances from a lot of guys. Jalen Beeks so far has not been Jalen Cheeks. Let that one sink in.
Jalen Reeks.
He hasn't Jalen Reeked. He's looked pretty solid, you know, a 2.08 ERA over 4 1/3 innings. That one earned run he gave up was a solo home run, but 4 strikeouts, you know, just the good lefty out of the pen. Jake Bird did struggle in his, I believe that was his first outing of the year, but has really been putting it together with solid performances since. We know Jake Bird is a quality bullpen arm. You know, he's got that kind of stuff. And Peter Lambert been overall fairly solid working in long relief roles. There's a couple guys who still need to put it together. You know, Justin Lawrence had his difficult outing yesterday. Tyler Kinley's still kind of working on it. And the big one is Anthony Molina. It's been very tough for him. Where in 2 appearances and 3 1/3 innings, he's given up 11 earned runs and has just 1 strikeout to 4 walks. He's given up 2 home runs. But here's the thing is we knew that Anthony Molina was going to be a project. Yeah. And that's the thing is that we didn't get to stash him in AAA and let him keep working on things because of the Rule 5 draft. He has got to be on the 26-man roster or we've got to give him back. And they don't want to give him back because they see the potential in this kid. And there have been flashes of what he can do. So I think it really is just you're going to keep drip feeding him some appearances and just hope he can turn it around. But for the mainstays of the Rockies bullpen right now, it's been a good start to the season, and I'm very, very impressed with them.
Yeah, and the only thing we talked, same conversation we had last year, is that rotation has got to get more innings to protect that bullpen because Bud Black's management hasn't been great with what he's been dealt here so far, where Victor Vodnik's throwing 2 innings, throwing 40 pitches, that type of stuff. You're like, no, that dude shouldn't be pitching more than 1 inning. He's that power arm. And so it's kind of continued. It's great that the bullpen's kind of keeping things from spiraling out of control because they've come in and thrown some lockdown, shutout innings from like the 5th to the end of the inning, 6th to the end of the game. I mean, but how long can that hold up until they start to burn out like they did last year? So we'll take it for now, but the Rockies got to figure out a way of how can we keep this sustained over the year where these guys aren't getting burned out by the end of May.
Yeah, we can't have it happen like it did last year where the bullpen starts out so strong, but they are just so heavily taxed that by the end of the season, number-wise, they're not a good unit.
Yeah.
But all we can do is wait and see. And I really do hope the starting pitchers turn things around. And speaking of starting pitchers, let's roll into just a brief little segment before we wrap things up here. Minor League Baseball is underway. On the same day as the home opener, the full minor league season has officially started. Granted, the Isotopes have been playing for a couple days at this point, but all of the other Rockies affiliates started playing, except for the Hartford Yard Goats, who were snowed out for their first 2 games of the season. But we had some really good performances, and I think the one that everybody's going to want to hear about is about Rockies' top pitching prospect, Chase Dollander, who in his minor league debut, never pitched in the minors before. This was his minor league debut. 5 hitless, scoreless innings with 8 strikeouts.
And 3 walks.
And a hit by pitch.
Yeah.
He did have
an error.
Towards the middle and end of his outing, he did, have a little bit of command issue, but the fact that he still struck out 8 batters, and he really did, no damage came of any of those walks. He did a good job turning things around and keeping things rolling. Worked with a quick pace. His pitches looked good. I am so excited. This is a kid who he's going to get fast tracked through the system. You can tell that. If not in May, by the end of May, he's going to be in Hartford.
Yeah, totally. Then you could see him start ending the year in AAA. You know, I'm not going to be so bold to say he's going to debut at the Rockies in the end of September. Like, no, I don't think they'd want to do that. That's too fast of a track.
Yeah, I mean,
This ain't Paul Skeens we're talking about.
he might, but
It'd be like the
let's
one start
ease
at the
up off of
very
that a
end.
little bit. Yeah,
Yeah. Focus on AAA. But yeah, no, it's good to see it, minor league baseball in general on Spokane. Says games are going to be on MLB TV. First game of the season was not, so we'll just have to see what happens with all that.
so
But there was audio.
They were prepped for it. They were having some technical issues with the stream. If you logged on to MLB TV to watch, the option was there to pull it up, but the live feed wasn't connected. They're hoping to have that sorted out soon, and apologize for the issues. That is a bummer, but the Spokane game was a lot of fun to follow. Dion Jorge had a 2-for-4 game. Bobby Martin Jr. had a 2-for-4 game. Jesus Boo-ryant had a 2-for-4 game. It was a lot of fun. And to have Chase Dollander have such a great game, and then it was all rolled up with my man Zach Agnos out of Eastern Carolina getting his first save of the season in a 1-2-3 final inning of the game. He was great. Fresno had a really fun game in which the Fresno Grizzlies beat the San Jose Giants 8-3. We had a bunch of really good performances, but another Rockies pitching prospect, Jack Mahoney, also had a very, very good Fresno debut. 5 innings, 4 hits, just 1 earned run and 1 walk, and another 8 strikeouts. And then another guy who I think was a sneaky good draft pick, making his minor league debut for the Rockies. Or not his minor league debut, pardon me, because he did play in the Arizona Conflicts League last year. Mr. Stuart Philip Flesland III, out of the University of Washington, pitched 2 scoreless innings with a strikeout for Fresno as well. Bummer that Hartford games got postponed. They got dumped on with snow kind of last minute, so they had to postpone for Friday and Saturday. And then you look at Albuquerque, and they've got Jordan Beck tearing it up. He's having a fantastic season so far. He's got 2 home runs and 8 RBI over 21 at-bats and an OPS of 1.274. Sean Bouchard has been excellent down in AAA Albuquerque as well. So is Coco Montez. Grant Levine having a very good season. Hunter Goodman off to a very good start. Lots of fun stuff to watch when it comes to Rockies minor league ball right now.
And that's, I think the access of being able to watch them is awesome. You have the MLB TV in any form. You can get MLB TV on its own, but I think it's more cost effective to get Major League Baseball, and then you have that included. And it's awesome. You can watch all 4 affiliates pretty regularly, or you can tune in when they're on the road. You can still watch the games probably, or you can tune into local audio feeds. Pal Stephen Rice on the call for the Fresno Grizzlies. I think he's just on the radio for this first series. But yeah,
because
fun to see all this stuff.
They're playing on the road in San Jose.
Yeah. But Dollander, I think, is the one that I'm really excited to keep an eye on, and hopefully the next time around it comes when he can pitch, the feeds will be good. A feed of some kind will be good to go. They'll probably be on the road the next time he pitches, I would assume. But he's one that I'm excited to watch and see that growth, because this was his first professional game. First game since being drafted professionally, regular season where it counts. And dude shoved.
He did play in the spring breakout game, but that's an exhibition game, and he pitched 1 inning.
Yeah. So this was like his first official game, and I reading an article where he was just excited, ready to execute, and I think he's going to be a fun project to watch, of if he can really put it all together and get that fast track like we were saying. If he can perform well, gets to AAA, competing for a rotation spot next year, type of thing. So he's doing good, and good first outing. Excited to see what happens the rest of the season for him.
Definitely. And like I've said many times, if you're ever going to start watching minor league baseball, now is the year to do it. If granted, any year is a good year, but now is especially a good year.
Mm-hmm. I have a Fresno Grizzlies hat coming in the mail.
They have good hats. Fresno Grizzlies always look really sharp.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's the thing. All of our affiliates look darn good on the field. They all have great uniforms. They all have great caps. They all have great alternate identities. You know, Fresno does the Fresno Tigers, which is really cool. You've got Spokane, and they're joining the Copa with like, what is it, the Cafecitas?
Yeah, the Cafecitos,
which is a really fun branding. You know, Hartford, the Yard Goats are great. The Isotopes have Los Mariachis de Nuevo Mexico.
The Yard Goats also have the Bouncing Pickles identity.
Bouncing Pickles, and they also have Los Chivos, which is just a really cool look. Like, we got a bunch of good looking minor league teams out there. And the Grizzlies also have their alternate black and golds, which is a slick look.
And they all have good social medias too.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the parent club, it's a little bit more serious, doesn't do as much. Those affiliates, though, good stuff, and they interact. A lot of fun stuff.
Can I just say, and I'm not trying to denigrate the proud mascots of the Hartford Yard Goats, they kind of creep me out.
Nightmare fuel?
It's the big teeth on chompers. Just, there's something I don't like about that.
Some unnerving about the gigantic teeth.
Now, Ribby and Otto down in Spokane, and I'm not just saying this because I got to have a wonderful conversation with the mascot coordinator for the Spokane Indians, Aaron Kroom. Those are some darn good mascots. We also got Parker T. Bear. You got Orbit.
Orbit's pretty good. The most adorable thing that happens at Isotopes games is there will be the mini Orbits, where they'll get the little kids and dress them up in a little Orbit costume, and then Orbit tries to dance with them out on the field, and then it's just beautiful chaos because some of those kids just do not want to dance.
It reminds me of when they do kid-themed events, or they have like the Children of the Future kind of nights for Avs games. They get a Little Burn out there. He's basically a child version of their mascot, Bernie, and he's great. I would die for Little Burn. Thank you very much.
Before we leave here, thing with my Northern Colorado Owls friends, their old mascot they'd have a family. There was Hoots the Owl, and then there was Holly the Owl, his wife, and then they had a kid named Rowley. And man, I hate that little mascot. There's something about Rowley that he's a little punk. You don't like him.
Is it visually?
No, there's just something about Rowley I just don't like.
I'm Googling it.
Looks like a little punk. Like Hoots is a good dude.
Oh, he does look like a punk.
Yeah, there's just something about him. He just looks like a punk. But he was usually the only one that they'd have at the games because the other costumes were kind of nasty inside.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
There's something about Rowley where like, don't like this punk.
But if you want to learn more about mascots and mascot performances, you should go back and check out my interview with Aaron Kroom of the Spokane Indians, because it was legitimately a very enlightening interview. I learned a lot, legitimately. It was a lot of fun. But that's going to really do it here for us here on Affected by Altitude. I do have one thing that I want to put out, and I'm trying not to bring the mood down, because overall this has been a fairly fun episode. But we're getting clips of some pregame and postgame stuff in the clubhouse with Kris Bryant talking about the ugly side of baseball after yesterday's home opener. Things like receiving death threats and other things like that, harassment on social media. Don't be that guy. Come on, just don't. Like, you want to boo Kris Bryant because he's struggling, fine, but there is no need to ever take it any further than that. You got to remember that these are people with families and lives and all of the other stuff like that. It's just, come on, guys, be cool. Can we be cool, please?
Yeah, don't be. It's just a game. At the end of the day, these are dudes just playing a game. Yes, they get paid way more than maybe they should at times, but hey.
But we are, at the end of the day, watching grown men with sticks hit balls.
Yeah, and whether or not Kris Bryant hits a home run, and he didn't go into detail of when or where death threats are coming from. He's just experienced them in the past. But whatever athlete it is, like, don't be a jerk. Them performing in a sports game has absolutely no effect on you in your life. Like, if you feel the need to tell somebody to go do something to themselves because he gave up a home run, like gave up a home run in the top of the ninth, like, how does that affect you at all? So be good people. And luckily we have good fans and good people, so we know it's not you, but
yeah.
Tell the friends in your life, don't be a jerk.
Accusation that any of our listeners do that kind of thing. It's just, I feel like it needs to be addressed sometimes, and I wish it didn't have to be, but unfortunately, it does. But that's going to do it here for us on Affected by Altitude. Thank you so much for listening. Skyler, where can the folks find you on the socials?
Whenever the wind blows, you'll find my name whisper at _crowd.
Is that
and writing Wednesday Rock Piles.
Is that on Twitter, or is there a Wind app I can download?
Twitter Wind. X.
No one's. God, I hate that it's still called X. You can find me at Evan_Lang on Instagram and Twitter. You can find me writing the Monday Rock Pile and Pebble Reports over on purplerow.com. Skyler also frequently writing things over on Fans First Sports Network, game recaps and other articles. It's been a lot of fun.
I'm learning how difficult those can be sometimes.
Well, we used to have to do them pretty regularly.
I was not part of that crew.
Oh, right. So we used to. It used to be regularly that if it was your rock pile day, you would also do game day coverage. And
well, we had like specific game day coverage people and specific rock pile people, and then there was some mixture of people doing both.
You're right, because when I first started in 2021, I didn't do rock piles; I did game day.
Yeah, you did game day, and then you moved over to rock piles.
But yeah, and it's especially after a very bad game, they are difficult to write.
Or you have some written up in the, I don't know, say the 8th inning, and then the Rockies go and give up 5 runs in the top of the 9th, and you have to rewrite the whole thing, expecting them to lose, and then they come back and win, so you have to rewrite again.
Yep,
fun stuff.
Pretty much. And especially when you generally need to get those recaps up relatively quickly. But it's funny. You can also follow Rocky Mountain Rooftop on Twitter and on YouTube and on Instagram. All 3 the same handle. That's at Rocky Mountain Rooftop, at ROCKYMTN Rooftop. Folks, thank you so much for listening. Happy home opening weekend here in the beautiful state of Colorado. And Skyler, if you would please hit them with it.
Autobots, farewell.
That was not bad, honestly. That was not bad.
I like Transformers.
Robots in disguise.
Farewell! This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.